Good morning, welcome to Me and My Motor, presented by MOTORMIA. I'm super excited today to have Kevin Kassar here with us.
My name's Kevin Kassar. I'm the founder and CEO of Kassar Performance and Design. I'm really excited to be here today and to give you kind of a context of my automotive world, background, history,
awesome.
And what has been the essence of Americana. You've got many different subcategories of within the enthusiast space, right? Yeah. Not just from, American Muscle to European to JDM, but you've got other sites of cultures, and it's really, really cool because everyone has their niche. Yeah. And for me, going back to my family's been in the automotive industry for just about a century, and it goes all the way back to Europe and the country of Malta, where my grandparents are originally from. And what was cool is that it all started, based on the fact that my great-great-grandfather and my great-great-uncle started what was known as Kassar Brothers Garage in the late 1910s, early 1920s.
In Malta.
Yeah, in Malta.
This is in
correct.
Malta.
Yes. So my great-great-uncle was a businessman, and my great-great-grandfather was a tradesman and an engineer by trade.
And these are the two that owned Kassar
Brothers Garage.
Brothers Garage, and this was in Malta in the 1910s?
1920s,
1920s.
Yeah. That's when it really took off.
That's when it really took off, and you told me a story about the kind of cars they worked on.
Yeah. Anytime the royal family from Great Britain would come to Malta via ship, they would bring their vehicles, whether they're Model Ts or any British vehicle. My great-great-grandfather and my grandfather at the time, this is in the late 20s, early 30s, they'd be the ones to service their vehicles for the great royals and from Great Britain. And not only it was like a service shop, but it was also, they did automotive sales, they did conversions. Cool. They literally, because the government of Malta needed many buses. Okay. So my grandfather's got pictures in his photo catalogs and stuff. And they imported the first Model T truck, and then they built a bus out of that. Fast forward, we won the war. My grandparents immigrated to the U.S. and
when was that?
That was late 1940s.
Late 1940s. Okay.
Late 1940s. My grandmother went first. Okay. She got settled in Michigan, and then my grandfather followed her behind. And then my Uncle Johnny, he went to Detroit before everybody. Oh, okay. And to kind of get the bearings set down in Allen Park and Dearborn and all of that. And at that time, this is probably 1949, 1951, 1950, around that time.
Post World War II. Wow.
And then eventually he got his foot in the door as a tool and die maker at Ford.
Probably.
Yeah, no, literally, my Uncle Johnny helped him with that. Literally, he's one of the most hardworking blue-collar American men you'll ever meet. Still with us? He's still with us. 95 years old.
Awesome. Got a 94-year-old dad. So I love that. You're great.
I built this car behind us in honor of his name and tribute. He was at Ford for 35 years. Okay. Started as a tool and die maker, and then ended as a production line manager all the way to the end. In between, he'd go work for Chevrolet and GM when work was slow and things like that. And then my Uncle Steve and my Uncle Dennis got into the mix. Into things.
All your dad's brothers got involved.
My mom's brothers.
Okay, good.
Into things, and so this was, especially in the '60s, it was start and height of muscle car era.
Yeah.
And and when you live in Motor City, it doesn't get any better like that. It's just, my Uncle Dennis and my Uncle Steve used to tell me about them drag racing down Woodward Avenue. It's the greatest thing ever. But getting back to that, there's a gentleman that's synonymous in the world of custom hot rods, Chuck Miller from Styline Customs. And especially my Uncle Dennis, he was Chuck Miller's first full-time apprentice. Wow. In Styline Customs. And So, and then my Uncle Steve later on got taught some things here and there. But as continue on, as he did, my Uncle Dennis did better and better. He was the first out of any apprentice that Chuck Miller ever had to allow to paint his cars.
Wow.
It was pretty incredible. And then what was so significant about all of the apprenticeship, like it goes back to that blue collar American nature that I'm about, my family's about, and we're darn proud of it. And so, you know, before he could do any of those things, even like do any body work or anything,
right,
he'd have to entrust him. You have to sweep the shop floor. You have to keep it clean. He did that for a solid year straight.
Before he got any of the good stuff.
Before he got his hand on any car.
You got to pay your dues, right?
Pay your dues, absolutely. So fast forward, moving to.
Do you feel like that work ethic was obviously instilled in you by your dad and great examples, but by your mom too?
More so my mom and my mom's side of the family.
Okay.
You know, I hold everything credit to them, and because, you know, it's so great, you know, because, you know, the great thing that I'm such an American patriot, that our country is based on immigrants, and it's so predicated on that, and it's so important in my belief, you know, because of my family background, but instilled that they're 110% American, and they dove deep into that because
we all came here from somewhere.
Exactly. So, you know, my grandfather, he'll tell you anymore, I'm more American than he is Maltese now.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, cars is something that always made sense to me. It was always something that took my interest of like, how can, you know, a group of human beings and a group of Americans come together to make such an artistry of design, right, to be able to do that, right?
And it's also a machine. It's not just something that hangs on a wall.
Exactly, right? And it's there's, you know, thousands of components that bring it all together, right? But anyway, as a young kid, it's like that bedroom wall poster that Jeremy Clarkson would always say on Top Gear.
Yep.
And
so tell me about the first time you heard a V8.
The first time I heard a V8, I think I was probably, I want to say 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And I think if I'm correct, I think it had to been either a Catfish Camaro or it had to been or a C5 Vet. And I'm just really young, so I'm like, you know, I think, or it was a 96 Mustang Cobra. But it's that earth-shattering like growl that it intoxicates your soul. Yeah. And it's something that is just, it's unlike anything other to me. You know, I have some other great engines that I love. Love the flat six Porsche 911, you know, engines that they just scream to 9,000 RPM, but there's just nothing more raw and American than an American V8, whether it's, you know, a Boss 429, it's a LS9, you know, Corvette ZR1, or a completely, you know, built LS3 cam, ported heads, the whole nine. But it's just something to me that is, there's nothing like a V8, because since Henry Ford developed the flathead V8, it has just, since from all the big three, it's just grown and evolved over almost 100 years.
Yeah. You know, you talk about this connection with cars and how did that help you as a kid growing up, just to kind of feeling connected to the car and to the community?
I appreciate that question, Eric. You know, it's, as I mentioned earlier, as a kid, I didn't have a lot of friends, so, you know, it was something that there's just something like I found, especially, you know, I love all muscle, but there's something especially I found in the Mustang that, you know, recently when the Mustang GTD got released, it almost brought me to tears, the trailer that Ford did for it. It was Mustang soul, and I just remember as a kid that there was something about the Mustang that just was larger than life, and people could connect to. And as a kid, it's like, you know, if I didn't have any friends, maybe like the car, you know, I'm a little 5-6-year-old kid, maybe the car could be friends with me, and
I know exactly what you're
stuff
saying.
like that. And yes, it's a machine, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more,
particularly in the imagination of a child,
right?
Who, we imbue things into.
Exactly, and you know, it's. I've been fortunate enough with this car that I've been able to have those same reactions and things as an adult now to those kind of kids in the newer generation. So it was in the connection for cars for me, it was not only the family-esque of things, but it was also something I developed on my own. You know, it is so important that we, as now, you know, in my generation, that we, and generations of all, that keep continuing to get young kids, boys and girls involved in cars, because it is such a great outlet to keep them out of trouble and out of drugs and bad things. And it's something that I've really wanted to get a part with, and I'm doing a couple things right now to try and get a part of that. The car community, the enthusiast community is so wholesome. It really helped me develop not only my social skills, but just, you know, who I am and the connection upon that.
What having, owning, and being involved with cars has done and helped you as a kid, you know, and an adult as well?
Yeah, it kind of gets me emotional because it's I'll never forget. So before this car, I've had many Mustangs throughout my lifetime, and there was I was in college at U of A, and it came a point where I had to make a tough life decision.
Okay.
And you know, I think I was 21 at the time, and I had gone through almost 10 months prior in a near-death car accident where out of nowhere, a car completely just takes a dive and dies on me. And so, you know, this oncoming car is on the right. I'm running at momentum. You know, I had no power, all loss of power. So there was, you know, there on the left-hand side of the highway, there's only a narrow pull-off lane, and the wide one you're supposed to pull off is on the right-hand side.
And you're not there.
And there's no way I don't have enough momentum or energy to get there. So I had to pull off, put my hazards on, put the car in neutral, pull the e-brake up. I'm dialing for roadside assistance on my phone, and thank God I still have my seatbelt on. Before I hit it, there was this woman in the Chevrolet Cruze that hit me at 65 miles an hour from behind. So when I talk about reconciliation of hope, I'm a Christian. I'm very faithful and passionate about my faith. And that time, because my face broke the steering wheel, and I was in really rough shape. I re-injured my injury from prior because my knee went through the dash, and then I screwed up my back really well. But you can imagine what a SN95 New Edge Mustang is. I'm lucky to be alive. Fall out, this guy, you know, I thought he was like a guardian angel, and he pulled me away. And then 5 minutes later, I see the Mustang I literally had for 6 days just engulfed in flames.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to be alive, and you know, it's that's where, you know, like you said, the three principles of my life: God, and then countries, you know, because Americans built that car. So that's another thing why I feel like another reason I'm pretty alive. And then getting me through all that was my family and my friends, and so, you know, the reconciliation is like, you know, when I got my '08 GT California Special Mustang, I absolutely love that car to death, and so. Every time that I was having a downpour, I was having a lot of physical problems. I had gained weight because of all this. I'm a very active person, and you know, there's just something about the acoustics and the sound of a V8 just going through the rev range and going for a drive. I used to drive on Mount Lebanon in Tucson so much. I remember there were times before a test I would go take a drive just to totally clear my head. And then all these things is a reconciliation that if people are having a hard time, there is an outlet to help you get through those things. And that car and everything, it provided me the reconciliation of hope that I thought my life was over. Like I was on the table. I had so many surgeries. I was in agonizing pain. And you know, although this was almost a decade ago, it really put things in perspective for me, because in order to get that Mustang that I had, I was in my accident, I made some very bad decisions within my family that caused some problem and hardship between relationships. And it really all encompassed and put things together in scope for me, is that, you know, it caused me to grow up even further, and I made the right decisions. I realized that if I didn't have that centric piece and crossroads in my life, it wouldn't have been that instrumental. And I think it's those 3 core principles that are who I am that have helped me get me to where I am today.
Yeah.
And it's really because after I sold that car, I was so sad for weeks. I missed that car.
Sure.
And it came a point where I put myself in some bad financial decisions. And you know, it's like, would you rather have a roof over your head and things like that when you're a college kid and things like that? Or so I made the right decisions. I went back to work. I worked part-time, and I went to school.
That's awesome.
I finished graduating at U of A and in my marketing and business degree and communications degree. And
so I've been watching some Chuck Miller videos.
Yeah.
And one of the themes that came up in Chuck Miller's videos, and I think you sort of touched on this with your great-grandfather back in Malta, but I wanted to ask you, in the Chuck Miller videos, the one thing that kept coming up was that he always liked to challenge himself.
Yeah.
Always liked to do something hard when he got a car. So one of my first questions, sort of to finish up this piece of sort of about you, is what's been your biggest challenge?
And my grandfather Emmanuel, he never picked the easy road. Life is not easy.
Nope.
And I think this is going back into my faith, is that God picks his soldiers that only can take the most toughest challenges.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm one of those, you know.
If you had to thank 3 people for helping you get where you are, who would they be?
God first,
Amen.
My mom, and I would definitely say my grandparents, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.